शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं
कृष्णं
शशिवर्णं
शशिवर्णं
प्रसन्नवदनं
ध्यानं
ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करभावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजम्। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிருக்தோ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தஹே जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयम्। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशी विभूषितकरात् नवनीरधाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കുപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഇതിനു മന്യനെ കുമ്പിടേണ്ടാത്തോരു രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കുന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the class. I know we have few people absent today because of the Kumbhabhishekam going on at Aurora, so some of them have gone there. All right, so let's do a quick review of the second Dasakam today. Padma, Ramesh, are you on? Let's see. Oh, Padmaja, yeah. So can you do one half, Padmaja?
Sure.
Can you do one half? 6 to 10.
So I'm doing the first half or second half? I'm sorry.
First half, 1 to 5.
Okay. सूर्यस्पर्धिकिरीटम् ऊर्ध्वतिलक प्रोद्भासि पालान्तरम् कारुण्याकुलनेत्रम् आर्द्रहसितोल्लासं सुनासापुटम् गण्डोद्यन्मकराभकुण्डलयुगम् कण्ठोज्ज्वलत्कौस्तुभम् त्वत्रूपं वनमाल्यहारपटल श्रीवत्सदीप्रं भजे केयूराङ्गत कङ्कणोत्तम महारत्नाङ्गुलीयाङ्कित श्रीमद्बाहुचतुष्क सङ्गद गदा शङ्कारि पङ्केरुहाम् काञ्चित् काञ्चन काञ्चिलाञ्चितलसत् पीताम्बरालम्बिनीम् आलम्बे विमलाम्बुजद्युतिपदां मूर्तिं तवार्तिच्छेदम् यत्रैलोक्यमहीयसोऽपि महितं सम्मोहनं मोहनात् कान्तं कान्तिनिदानतोऽपि मधुरं माधुर्यदुर्यादपि सौन्दर्योत्तरतोऽपि सुन्दरतरम् त्वत्रूपम् आश्चर्यतोऽप्याश्चर्यम् भुवनेन कस्य कुतुकम् पुष्णाति विष्णो विभो तत्तादृङ्मधुरात्मकम् तव वपुः सम्प्राप्य सम्पन्मयी सा देवी परमोत्सुका चिरतरं नास्ते स्वभक्तेष्वपि तेनास्या बत कष्टमच्युत विभो त्वत्रूपमानोज्ञक प्रेमस्थैर्यमया अचापलबलात् चापल्यवार्तोदभूत् लक्ष्मीस्तावक रामणीयक हृतैवेयं परेष्वस्तिरेति अस्मिन्नन्यदपि प्रमाणमधुना वक्ष्यामि लक्ष्मीपते ये त्वद्ध्यानगुणानुकीर्तनरसासक्तिः सक्ता हि भक्ता जनाः तेष्वेषा वसति स्थिरैव दयितप्रस्ताव दत्तादरा
Vijay, will you be able to do 6 to 10?
Sure. एवं भूतमनोन्यत नवसुधा निश्यन्द सन्दोहनम् त्वद्रूपं परछिद्रसायणमयं चेतोहरं शृण्वताम् सद्य प्रेरयते मतिं मदयते रोमाञ्चयत्याङ्गकम् व्यासिञ्चत्यपिशित बाष्पवीशरैः आनन्दमूर्छोद्भवै
Bhavai, the last, Bhavai.
भवैः एवं भूततया हि भक्त्या विहितो योगसयोगद्वयात् कर्मज्ञानमया दृशोतमतरो योगीश्वरैर्गीयते सौन्दर्यैकरसात्मके त्वयि खलु प्रेम प्रकाशात्मिका भक्तिः निश्रममेव विश्वपुरुषैर्लभ्या रमावल्लभा निष्कामं नियत स्वधर्मचरणं यत्कर्मयोगाद्भीदं तद्दुरेत्यफलं यदुपनिषद ज्ञानोपलभ्यं पुनः तत्त्वव्यक्ततया सुदुर्गमतरं चितस्य तस्माद्विभो त्वत्प्रेमात्मक भक्तिरेव सततं स्वादीयसी श्रेयसी अत्याय शकराणि कर्मपटलानि आचर्य निर्यन्मलाः बोधे भक्तिपते तवपि उचितताम् आयान्ति किं तावता.
And the second line of chinna correction. The bhode bhakti pateta vapi. It's a sound there. Okay.
बोधे भक्तिपते तवापि उचितताम् आयान्ति किं तावता क्लिष्ट्वा तर्कपते परं तव वपुः ब्रह्माख्यमन्ये पुनः चित्तर्द्रत्वमृते विचिन्त्य बहुभिः सिद्ध्यन्ति जन्मान्तरै.
Fourth line, after vichintya, there is a comma, okay? In the middle.
Vichintya.
After that.
चित्तर्द्रत्वमृते विचिन्त्य बाहुभिः सिद्ध्यन्ति जन्मान्तरै. त्वद्भक्तिस्तु कथारसामृतहरि निर्मज्जनेन स्वयं सिद्ध्यन्ति विमलप्रबोधपदवीम् अक्लेशतस्तन्वति सद्या सिद्धिकरी जयत्यै विभो सैवास्तु मे त्वत्पद प्रेम प्रौधि रसार्द्रात द्रुततराम वातालयादीश्वर.
Both of you said it really well. The tune mattum Vijay, I think you are like you are following up from where Padmaja left off, I think, in the tune left. So adu mattum just go check against the recording, okay? But otherwise you said it all correct. Because of that you were kind of going, and when you were switching lines, your tune was going off, right? Little bit. So just check that idu mattum iruka.
Sure. I actually listened to your recording and that's how I learned, but the tune is not sticking, Rajesh. And I think
Eventually it will eventually stick. I mean, we'll have a lot of such four-liners, so eventually it will stick. So no worries. That's why I didn't stop you, because if you were going in that flow, I wanted you to finish it that way. So
sorry, thank you.
all right. Okay, so I think we had finished the first two stanzas of Dasakam 3, right? So we'll continue with this. So Jyoti, Dev, you can be a student. Preeti, can you be a student in the first half? Yeah. Okay. So stanza 3. कृपाथे जाता चेत किमिव न हि लभ्यं तनुभृतां मदीय क्लेशौघ प्रशमन दशा नाम कियती न के लोकेऽस्मिन् अनिशमयि शोकाभिरहिताः भवद्भक्ता मुक्ताः सुखगतिमसक्ता विदधते. So in this chapter, in this Dasakam, we are kind of seeing about two things. One of them is what are the qualities of a perfect devotee. So when someone says it's a perfect devotee, how should that person be, right? How does that person behave? What are the attributes of it? The second part of it is there are prayers, because Bhattacharya wants to be a perfect devotee. So there are prayers to be a perfect devotee. So the last stanza, he said, you know what, I'm getting all these afflictions I have with my body and mind and everything. It's distracting me, right, from worshipping you all the time. So please eradicate it. So here he says, in every Dasakam, like I said, going forward, right? So for example, when Brahma is doing the creation and when Narayana helps Brahma with creation, so he'll say, you know what, you are able to help Brahma create the entire universe, but you are not able to come and help me get rid of the problems I am having, which is so insignificant, right? So similarly, Narasimha Avatar, all these avatars that are going to come, he says, you are able to do all these things, so Krishna, Guru Ayappa, but I'm having a very small problem of having rheumatoid arthritis. You are not able to come and get rid of that problem for me. That should not even be an issue for you, right? But why are you not doing that, right? That's a question that will come at the end of every chapter, right? So he says here is, this is very, very insignificant, because when you go and meet the president of the country, you don't tell him that your community did not have the snow cleared, because it's insignificant to you. So he says, I know my request is so insignificant to you compared to all the things you take care of, but he says it's important for me because there are a lot of devotees, like Vicky spoke when we're going to speak about in the next stanza also, who are able to move around freely without any attachment, always thinking about you. For me to be able to get there, this is important. So that's why the prayer here to say, please get rid of all the afflictions I'm having so I can be like other devotees of yours. So kripa te jata chet. After the it, we'll put a comma. Chet. Kimiva nahi labhyam tanubhritam, comma. Madiya kleshaugha prashamana dasha nama kiyati. The ki is a small e. Thi is a long e. Kripathe jata chet kimiva nahi labhyam tanubhritam madhiya kleshaugha prashamana dasha nama kiyati.
कृपाते जाता चेत् किमिव न हि लभ्यं तनुभृतां मदीयक्लेशौघ प्रशमनदशा नाम कियती न कृपाते जाता चेत् किमिव न हि लभ्यं तनुभृतां मदीयक्लेशौघ प्रशमनदशा नाम कियती.
Oh, Preeti, go ahead. Yeah. You're on mute. Yeah.
कृपाते जाता चेत् किमिव न हि लभ्यं धनभृतां मदीयक्लेशौघ प्रशमनतशा नाम कियती कृपाते जाता चेत् किमिव न हि लभ्यं धनुभृतां मदीयक्लेशौघ प्रशमनतशा नाम कियती.
Na ke lokesmin. You will have a double na if you're following in Sanskrit. So you first put one in lokesmin, comma. Next word will start with the a. Anishamai shokha bhirahitaha. If you don't have a visarga, add a visarga at the end of the line. Some books don't have it. Shokha bhirahitaha, comma. Bhavat bhakta muktaha, comma. Sukha ghatim asakha vidadhate. न के लोकेऽस्मिन् अनिशमयि शोकाभिरहिताः भवद्भक्ता मुक्ताः सुखगतिमसक्ता विदधते.
न के लोकेऽस्मिन् अनिशमयि शोकाभिरहिताः भवद्भक्ता मुक्ताः सुखगतिमसक्ता विदधते. न के लोकेऽस्मिन् अनिशमयि शोकाभिरहिताः भवद्भक्ता मुक्ताः सुखगतिमसक्ता विदधते.
न के लोकेऽस्मिन् अनिशमयि शोकाभिरहिताः भवद्भक्ता मुक्ताः सुखगतिमसक्ता विधत्ते. न के लोकेऽस्मिन् अनिशमयि शोकाभिरहिताः भवद्भक्ता मुक्ताः सुखगतिमसक्ता विधत्ते.
Is it easier if I do 4 lines together, or you want to do two lines? 4 together, because then either tune might be easier. मुने प्रौढ़ा रूढ़ाः जगति खलु गूढ़ात्मगतयो भवत्पादाम्बोजस्मरणविरुजो नारदमुखाः चरन्तीशस्वैरं सततपरिनिर्भातपरचित् सदानन्दाद्वैत प्रसरपरिमग्नाः किमपरम्. So continuing that same prayer, right, where you kind of said this is so insignificant to you, he says, I'm not even the first person who's coming and asking you for this, right, to be able to do this. Because sometimes when you go and ask for something, if there is already a precedent of somebody who has done it before or asked before, you can follow on that same steps, right? That's what he's saying. I'm sure, people like Shuka Brahmam and people like Narada, and this beautiful Narada Charitram, which is there in Srimad Bhagavatam, of Narada tells how he became like how he is. So Narada is one of those few people, and when we go to the later on in Dasakam 7, I'll talk about the Brahmandam and the Vaikuntham, which is different. And Narada is one of the few people who can travel between those places. Very few people can do that. And Narada, in movies, they generally make fun of him. They talk, he's like comes and creates problems, right? They show like that. He's one of the greatest of devotees that ever has been. I don't think there's a more devotee to Narayana than Narada is. And the number one marketing person who has spread the word of Narayana, right? So that Narada also, when he talks about his previous birth, of how he grew up and how he was always devoted and he wanted absolutely nothing to do other than just think about Narayana, right? So that's how he got next birth, he becomes Narada. So here Bhattaripat says people like that have been through that process. Narada and Shuka Brahmam, all of them, they don't want anything else. And he says, so you have blessed them with those opportunities. I also want to be like that. I also want to be like them. I don't want to worry about anything else. I want to be constantly thinking about you. And the only way, Padamboja, always thinking about your lotus feet. And so for that, since you bless them, you please bless me also, right? Get rid of all these problems I'm having so I can become like them, because they are the perfect of devotees. So Muni Prauda Rudhaha. So put a visarga there and comma, Rudhaha. Jagati Khalu Gudhatmagatayo, comma, Bhavat Padambhoja Smarana Virujo Narada Mukhaha Sharantisha Swairam, comma, Sathata Parinirbhata. So then you have to put a plus at the end of that line. So the rest of the sentence is going to come together. Parinirbhata Parachit Sadananda Dvaita. So Sada Ananda Advaita. Those are the three words in there. So always Advaita, they always think of the Supreme Brahman as the Advaita philosophy and cons and always engaged in the bliss of it. So Sadananda Dvaita Prasara Parimagnaha is there. Put a H sound to join it. Parimagnah Kimaparam. So the third line after Charantishat Swairam, there is a comma. Rest of them comes together. Muni Praudha Rudhaha Jagati Khalu Gudhatmagatayo Bhavat Padham Bhoja Smarana Virujo Narada Mukhaha Charantisha Swairam Satata Parinirbhata Parachit Sadananda Dvaita Prasara Parimagnah Kimaparam.
Muni Praudharudhaha Jagadigalu Gudatmagatayo Bhavatpadambhojasmaranavirjo Naradamukhaha Charandishaswairam Sadadaparinirphadaparajita Sadanandadvaida Prasaraparimatna Kimaparam. Munipraudharudhaha Jagadikhalu Gudhatmagatayo Bhavatpadambhojasmaranavirjo Naradamukhaha Charandishaswairam Sadadaparinirphadaparajita Sadanandadvaida Prasaraparimatna Kimaparam.
Muni Praudharudha Jagati Kalu Gudhatmakatayo Bhavatpadambhoja Virujo Narada Mukhaha Charanti Shaswairam Satata Parinirbhata Parachit Sadanandat Vaita Prasara Parimagnah Kimaparam.
Preeti, in the first line after Rudhaha, we added a visarga. You may not have it in your book sometimes, so you add a visarga there. Yeah.
Muni Praudharudhaha Jagati Khalu Gudhatmakatayo Bhavat Padambhoja Virujo Narada Mukhaha Charanti Shaswairam Satata Parinirbhata Parachit Sadanandhat Dvaita Prasara Parimagnah Kimaparam.
That's a fine. Bhavad Bhakti Svita Bhavatu Mama Saiva Prashamayete Ashesha Klesha Ugham Nakhalu Hridi Sandeha Kanika Nache Vyasasyoktih Tavacha Vachanam Naigama Vacho Bhaven Mitya Ratya Purusha Vachana Prahyamakilam. So we also feel a lot of times, where we are going constantly praying for something and then, that never happens, let's say, right? And then you are like worried, so what is this really true? I'm doing so many of these prayers, but nothing is happening. Should I then stop, praying or doing whatever you are doing, right? So Bhattacharya is thinking in similar lines because that's what every devotee thinks, right? So here he says that I don't have a choice, he says, while I'm asking to be like that and I'm suffering right now, in the meantime, he's saying, let me not stop praying to you. He says, in fact, it's the opposite. He says, let my devotion, bhavat bhakti, let me grow in intensity. So instead of reducing it, he said, I'm going to double it up, right? Because that's the only way my sufferings are going to go down, right? And he says, na khalu hridi sandeha, not even 1 ounce of doubt I have that is the right way to get rid of all the sufferings and the problems I'm having. And he says, why am I saying it? Like in math, we have assume the opposite, right? And then you prove that wrong. So he says, when you think of the greatest of people, when you think of Vyasa, who compiled the Vedas, he says devotion to Brahman is the only way out. That's the ultimate essence of the Vedas, is to devotion to the Lord. While you might be doing activities behind the scenes, it's all pure devotion that is there. And he's done it in Bhagavatam, he's done it in so many places. Vyasa has proved it, number one, right? And Krishna, you yourself told to Uddhava in Srimad Bhagavatam, and some of it is going to come in Narayaneeyam at the end, as to how important devotion is to you. And even in Bhagavad Gita, while you're given all those margams, you kind of said, relying on you, sarva dharman parityaja mameka sharanam vraja. You yourself have said that. So if I don't believe in that, that means all of them are liars, including you. So Vyasa is a liar, Shuka Brahman is a liar, Krishna is a liar. Everybody becomes a liar, which is not true. So I have to believe in that, right? So even if what I want is not happening, the only way is I pray to you to increase my devotion more to you and not let it not go down, right? Because of that. So bhavad bhakti put is bhavad bhaktis spita bhavatu mama, comma, saiva prashamayet, put it at the end of that line and a comma, prashamayet. Next line, the dashesha, you will have it. It becomes ashesha. So ashesha kleshaugham na khalu hridi sandeha kanika na chet vyasas yoktihi. So that is there. We're going to remove it. Otherwise, it becomes a long line. Vyasas yoktihi visarga comma tavacha vachanam naigama vacho. Naigama is referring to the Vedas. Naigama vacho, put a plus. Bhaven mitya, then a comma. So naigama vacho bhaven mitya, comma. Ratya purusha vachana prayamakhilam. Because it says, if I don't believe that, then it will mean that Vyasa and Krishna, whatever they said, are like the people on the streets who came and just holding a board and saying things, right? Who you ignore. He says it will become like that, which I know is not true. So I'm going to continue to believe in this. Bhavad bhakti spita bhavatu mama saiva prashamayet ashesha klesha ugham na khalu hridi sandeha kanika na chet vyasasyoktih tavacha vachanam naigama vacho bhaven mitya ratya purusha vachana prayamakhilam.
Bhavat bhakti spida bhavatu mama saiva prashamayet ashesha kleshaugham na khalu hridi sandeha kanika na chet vyasasyoktih tava javajanam naigamavajo bhaven mithya rathya purushavajana prayamakhilam. Bhavat bhakti spida bhavatu mama saiva prashamayet ashesha kleshaugham na khalu hridi sandeha kanika na chetvyasasyoktih stavajavajanam naigamavajo bhaven mithya rathya purushavajana prayamakhilam.
भवत् भक्तिस्फीता भवतु मम सैव प्रशमयेत् अशेषक्लेशौघं न खलु हृदि सन्देहकणिका न चेतव्यासस्योक्तिः तव च वचनं नैकमवचो भवेन्मिथ्यारत्या पुरुषवचनप्रायमखिलम्.
In the first line, after bhavatu mama, there is a pause. Okay, in the first line. And in the fourth, remember the naigama vacho bhaven mithya. We combined those two words. And then after fourth line, after that bhaven mithya, there is a pause. Okay. So naigama vacho bhaven mithya, pause.
Okay.
Satya purusha vachan.
Okay. Bhavat bhakti spita bhavatu mam. Okay. No worry. Bhavat bhakti spita bhavatu mama saiva prashamayet ashesha kleshaugham na khalu hridi sandeha kanika na chet vyasasyoktih tava cha vachanam naikamavacho bhaven mithya ratya purusha vachana priyam vachana prayamakhilam.
Stanza 6. Bhavad bhaktistavat pramukam haduratvat gunarasate kimapyaruda chet akila paritaba prashamani punaschante swante vimala paribodhodaya milan mahananda dvaitam dishati kimata prartyam aparam. This is another reason, like why don't give up on that bhakti but continue to increase it, because he says it's devotion. He's saying it's not like when you're having a problem, you take a medicine, right? But you take an antibiotic. Now, antibiotic has a certain term, right? You have to do it for 10 days, you have to drink. Here he says, but devotion is not like that. You don't have to take the full dose of it for it to take effect. It will start kicking in immediately. Number two, he says it's very sweet. Of course, medicines here are very sweet, but when you used to have those medicines back in India, the pills, it used to taste bad. But he says devotion is not like that. It's not like it's something which is going to taste bad to cure. It is actually going to be tasting good right from the beginning. And he says, even with a little bit of this devotion and bhakti, he says you can start seeing improvements in it, right? It'll eventually your sorrows will start going down, then you will get more attached to it. And we all have personal experiences, right? Nobody started by spending 24/7 praying. You all start, everybody starts by little, but it eventually increases. It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle there, right? So he says, that's what he says, so devotion. So why not take that approach, right? That's why I'm not going to lower my bhakti. I'm only going to increase it, because it, of course, has a lot more benefits than taking a medicine for a particular disease. This is a much better option because it's constant. You're going to see immediate results, right? And very similar to that, the stanza we saw about Namranam Sannidate, right? Saying, why not, pray to you? Why ask for a Kalpa Vriksha tree? Because you'll get what you want and you'll also get liberated with this. So Bhavat Bhaktis Tavat Pramukha Madhura Tvat Guna Rasat. Talking about your activities and like Guna Rasat, comma. Kimapya Rudha Chet. So the that is there, we'll break it, put a it, Chet, comma. Next word will start with the A. Akhila Paritapa Prashamani. Punaschante Swante, comma. Vimala Paribododhaya. Then you're going to put a plus at the end of that line. So when you do that, automatically, if you have an in the next line, you'll be able to say it together. Paribodhodaya Milan Mahananda Dvaitam Dishati. Okay, so third line, Punaschante Swante, there is a comma. Then the whole thing together. Then after Dishati, in the fourth line, there's a comma. Kimataha, put a F to join. Kimatah Prartyamaparam. Bhavat Bhaktistavat Pramukha Madhura Tvad Guna Rasate Kimapya Rudha Chet Akila Paritapa Prashamani Punaschante Swante Vimala Paribodho Dayamilan Mahananda Dvaitam Dishati Kimata Prartyamaparam.
भवद्भक्तिस्तावत् प्रमुखमधुरा त्वद्गुणरसाद किमप्यारूढा चेत् अखिलपरितापप्रशमनी पुनश्चान्दे स्वान्दे विमलपरिबोधोदयमिलन् महानन्दाद्वैतं दिशति किमदप्रार्थ्यमपरम् भवद्भक्तिस्तावत् प्रमुखमधुरा त्वद्गुणरसाद किमप्यारूढा चेत् अखिलपरितापप्रशमनी पुनश्चान्दे स्वान्दे विमलपरिबोधोदयमिलन् महानन्दाद्वैतं दिशति किमदः प्रार्थ्यमपरम्
भवद्भक्तिस्तावत् प्रमुखमथुरात् त्वत्गुणरसात् किमप्यारूढा चेत् अखिलपरितापप्रशमनी पुनश्चान्ते स्वान्ते विमलपरिबोधोदयमिलन् महानन्दाद्वैतं दिशति किमतः प्रार्थ्यमपरम् भवद्भक्तिस्तावत् प्रमुखमथुरात् त्वद्गुणरसात् किमप्यारूढा चेत् अखिलपरितापप्रशमनी पुनश्चान्ते स्वान्ते विमलपरिबोधोदयमिलन् महानन्दाद्वैतं दिशति किमतः प्रार्थ्यमपरम्.
The second line, after the chet, there is a small pause, a pause, okay, in the second line. Kimapya Ruda Chet, and then there is a comma there.
Okay.
Stanza 7.
Recite pannuma.
No, it's okay. As long as you correct it, yeah. Stanza 7. Vidhuya kleshan me kurucharana yugmam dhritarasam bhavakshetra praptau karamapi chate pujana vidhau bhavan murtya lokhe nayanam atathe pada tulasi parigrane granam shravanam apite charu charite. This is a very beautiful prayer that is happening here. He says, you know what? Yeah, remove all the problems I'm having, not so that I can go do other things. He says, why? Because first, why the feet has to be fixed? Why I should not have any problems with my feet? Because so that bhavat kshetra prapto, so that I can actually come and visit all your temples, right? For me to come and visit all your temples, a leg has to be good, right? Otherwise, we can't go visit all the temples that are there. Number two, karam api. Karam is referring to hand. Karam api chate pujana vidau. So you have to fix my hands so that I can actually offer, puja to you. I can put flowers to you, right? So that my hands have to work properly. Bhavan Murtyaloke Nayanam. Nayanam, eyes. So why do I need eyes? Because you have such a beautiful form, Guruvayurappa, which I described in Dasakam 2. So to be able to see that form in Guruvayur or anywhere, my eyes have to work. Remember, if you imagine if you cannot have your eyes working, right? You cannot see this beautiful form. Then Atate Pada Tulasi. So of course, my nose has to work so that the Tulasi Male which is put to you, I can actually get the fragrance of that Tulasi Male. I'm sure all of you readers know, you put that Male for 2 days, that fragrance remains, right, in that in the Male. So that fragrance of Tulasi Male I should be able to get. That's why my nose has to work. Then Shravanam apite charu charite. My ears have to work, because if my ears don't work, then all the great things people talk about you and tell about you and sing about you, I will not be able to hear any of that, right? He says, because of this, all my organs have to work. So please continue to bless me so my organs work so that I can continue to pray to you. So vidhuya kleshan me, comma, kuru charana yugmam dhrita rasam, and then put a plus, bhavat kshetra praptau, then a comma, karamapi chate pujana vidhau, bhavan murtya loke nayanam. So that ma will break it, put a im, nayanam, comma. Next word will start with the a. Atha te pada tulasi, put a plus, parigrane granam, then a comma. Shravanamapite charu charite. Vidhuya kleshan me kuru charana yugmam dhritarasam bhavat kshetra praptau karamapi chate pujana vidhau bhavan murtya loke nayanam atate pada tulasi parigrane granam shravanamapite charu charite.
विधूय क्लेशान् मे कुरु चरणयुग्मं धृतरसं भवच्छेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे घ्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते विधूय क्लेशान् मे कुरु चरणयुग्मं धृतरसं भवच्छेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे घ्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते
विधूय क्लेशान् मे गुरुचरणयुग्मं धृतरसं भवत्क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे घ्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते विधूय क्लेशान् मे गुरुचरणयुग्मं धृतरसं भवत्क्षेत्रप्राप्तौ करमपि च ते पूजनविधौ भवन्मूर्त्यालोके नयनम् अथ ते पादतुलसी परिघ्राणे घ्राणं श्रवणमपि ते चारुचरिते.
Translate. प्रभूतादिव्याधिप्रसवचलिते मामकहृदि त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्च रोमाञ्चो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीडा परिभवान्. Just a little bit continuing of that, says why that form that we talked about in Dasakam 2 is important, right? He says is because I'm having vyadhi, prabhutadi vyadhi, I'm having so many mental, physical problems, all these different things, right? And he says, but when you're just sitting and you're not thinking about anything or even praying without thinking about anything, he says it takes time. But however, he says, thinking of the form of yours, the advantage is the moment the form comes, automatically the form of the Bhagavan itself will help reduce the stress you have, will reduce some of the challenges you're having. He says, just like how when the sunlight comes, the darkness goes away. So similarly, when your form I'm imagining, that itself will calm my mind. And so naturally, the physical and the mental sufferings will all begin to clear. And he says, again, it has to get to the point, like we said, like he's also spoken before, Udanchat Romancho. He says it has to come to a point where you are having horripilation all over your body, thinking about the Lord, and also have tears which flow in your eyes, because he says that is a supreme level of bhakti. Like we said, you should have horripilation, you should have tears coming out of your eyes, and then only at that point you realize that you have fully devoted. And like we all know, right, people cry when you are in so much pain praying to the Lord. He says that is the level of devotion you need to have. Then you are kind of beginning to get to that point. So prabhutadhi vyadhi prasabha chalite mamaka hridi, twadiyam tadrupam parama sukha chidrupam udiyat udanchat. If you want to break that word, you can either say it as udanchat romancho in one word, or if you want to break it, it becomes udanchat romancho. If you want to separate, udanchat romancho galita bahu harshashru nibaho, yatha vismaryasam durupashama pidha paribhavan.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The second line, Twadiyam tadrupam parama rasa. There is a parama rasa in mine. Is it sukha?
Just change it to sukha. It means the same thing, happiness or sweet. Rasam is sweet. Sukha is also happiness, right? So it kind of is the same thing, but to be consistent, you can change it to sukha then.
Okay, Rajesh, I have a small request to Jyoti. She can please recite it a little slow. It will be easier for us to practice along with her. Thank you.
So, yata vismaryasam durupashama pida paribhavan. Prabhutadhi vyadhi prasabha chalite mamaka hridi twadhiyam tadrupam paramasuka chidrupam udiyat udanchat romancho galita bahu harshashrunevaho yatha vismaryasam durupashama pida paribhavan.
प्रबोधाधिव्याधिप्रसभचलिते मामगहृदि त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयाद उदञ्जद्रोमाञ्जो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीठा परिभवान् प्रबोधाधिव्याधिप्रसभचलिते मामगहृदि त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयाद उदञ्जद्रोमाञ्जो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीठा परिभवान्
प्रभूताधिव्याधिप्रसवचलिते मामकघृति त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उतञ्चत्रोमाञ्चो गलितबहु हर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीठा परिभवान्.
Sorry. And third line, harshashru. Up to that is one word. Okay. So if you want to separate that out. So galita bahu harshashru nivaho.
Okay. प्रभूताधिव्याधि प्रसभचलिते मामकहृति त्वदीयं तद्रूपं परमसुखचिद्रूपमुदीयात् उदञ्चत्रोमाञ्चो गलितबहुहर्षाश्रुनिवहो यथा विस्मर्यासं दुरुपशमपीडा परिभवान्.
Marudgehadesh Twai Khalu Paranchopi Sukino Bhavat Snehi Soham Subahu Paritapye Chakimidam Akirteste Mabhut Barada Gadabharam Prashamayen Bhavat Bhaktottam Sam Chatiti Kurumam Kamsadamana. Marudgehadisha means Guru Ayappa. Oh, Kamsadamana, the one who got rid of Kamsa. He says, I see so many people else in this world who don't pray to you. I don't see them praying to you, but they are all living so happily. So he says, Krishna, it is going to cause a bad reputation for you if I am praying so much and I am suffering, and then I see some other people who are not praying, who are actually having so much fun, or not having any issues. People are going to say bad things about you, right? Of course, he's just saying it for fun. He knows how things work, right? The law of karma doesn't work that easily, right? It's complicated, but he's saying, for that sake, at least you get rid of all the ailments I'm having, right? Because at least then people will say, poor guy, he's been suffering, he's been praying so much, so he got cured, right? It doesn't work that simple, right? Because when you think of some of the greatest of people, right, who have, is you should not expect that it'll get fixed. First of all, you should just say whatever happens, let it happen. And we see some amazing charitrams of Ambarisha and all of them who are the greatest of devotees, but they don't go and expect something to be solved. They'll request it, but you cannot have an expectation that because I'm requesting, it has to get solved, right? That is the slight difference in there. You can always go pray every day and pray for it, which is what he's going to say in the next final stanza also here. Anyway, so here he's saying, please eradicate it so others don't say bad things about you, Krishna. So Marudgeha Disha, comma, Tvai Chalu Paranchopi Sukhino, comma, Bhavat Snehi Soham Subahu Paritapye Cha Kimidam Akirtis Tema Bhut. So you have a dwa sound there, letter, the word there, dwa. You're going to break it. Bhut, put a it, comma. Next word starts with a varada, which is a boon. So varada Gadabharam Prashamayan, comma. Bhavat Bhaktothamsam. So he says, Jatiti, very quickly, not only eradicate my problems, also make it Bhakta Uttamam. They make me the strongest of your devotees, right? Bhavat Bhaktothamsam Jatiti Kurumam Kamsa Damana. Marudgehadhisha Tvai Khalu Paranchompi Sukhino Bhavat Snehi Soham Subahu Paritapye Chakimidam Akirteste Ma Bhut Varada Gadabharam Prashamayen Bhavat Bhaktottamsam Jhatiti Kurumam Kamsadamana.
मरुद्गेहाधीश त्वयि खलु पराञ्जो विसुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबहुपरितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्ते मा भूद् वरदगधभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तोत्तंसं झटिति कुरु मां कंसदमना मरुद्गेहाधीश त्वयि खलु पराञ्जो विसुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबहुपरितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्ते मा भूद् वरदगधभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तोत्तंसं झटिति कुरु मां कंसदमना
मरुद्गेहाधीश त्वयि खलु पराञ्चोऽपि सुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबहु परितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्ते मा भूत् वरदगदभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तोत्तंसं झटिति कुरु मां कंसदमन मरुद्गेहाधीश त्वयि खलु पराञ्चोऽपि सुखिनो भवत्स्नेही सोऽहं सुबहु परितप्ये च किमिदम् अकीर्तिस्ते मा भूत् वरदगदभारं प्रशमयन् भवद्भक्तोत्तंसं झटिति कुरु मां कंसदमन.
Last answer. Kimuktair Tava hi karuna yavat udiyat aham tavat deva prahita vividharta pralapitah purah klipte padhe varada tava nishyami divasan yata shakti vyaktam nati nuti nisheva virachayan. What is the use of just saying it again and again? He says, I'm not going to keep asking about it again and again, right? He says, I will ask at the end of every Dashakam, but he says the only way, just like how even, like we said, greater people like Parikshit, etc., right? Because of them, when he was going to die, he decided, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to spend the next 7 days just listening to Bhagavatam. So similarly, he says, what I am going to do, and because Bhattatripada is in day 3, right? He doesn't know he's going to get cured on day 100, right? He says, I'm not going to keep asking and worrying about it. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do, which is right about you, right? Which is what, and I'm going to stick to that. And the most important thing here, he says, is Yatha Shakti Vyaktam. So he says, people may do different things. There may be somebody who will walk all the way to Tirupati. You may not be able to do it, right? For any number of reasons. So he says, whatever I am able to do according to my capacity, right? I'll do Nati, Nuti, Nisheva. Nati means to prostrate. Nuti is to sing. And then, Nisheva is to worship. So whatever I am able to do according to my capacity, I am going to do it to you, right? That's the only choice. I don't have any other choice. So I'm going to stick to that, right? That with this Dashakam comes to an end of, we talked about how a great devotee needs to be and how you and praying to become a great devotee like that, to get rid of all the mental afflictions also that we have. Kimuktair bhuyo bihi. So that is goes away, put a visarga comma, bhuyo bihi. Tavahi karuna yavat udiyat. So put a it at the end of that line, udiyat, comma. Next line, that first word daham becomes aham. Aham tavad deva, double the there, tavad deva prahita vividhartha pralapitaha. Puraha is there, put a ich to join that visarga. Purah klipte pade varada, comma. Tava neshyami divasan, put a in, divasan and comma, in and comma. Next line, if you have a in your next line, that goes away. Yata Shakti Vyaktam Nati Nuti Nisheva Virachayan. Kimuftair Bhuyo Bihi Tavahi Karunaya Vadudiyate Aham Tavad Deva Prahita Vividhartha Pralapitaha Purah Klipte Padhe Varada Tabanishyami Divasan Yata Shakti Vyaktam Nati Nuti Nisheva Virachayan.
किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणायावदुदयाद् अहं तावद्धेव प्रहितविविधार्थप्रलपितः पुरः क्लिप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथा शक्तिव्यक्तं नदिनुदिनिषेवा विरचयन् किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणायावदुदयाद् अहं तावद्धेव प्रहितविविधार्थप्रलपितः पुरः क्लिप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथा शक्तिव्यक्तं नदिनुदिनिषेवा विरचयन्
किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणायावदुदयात् अहं तावदेव प्रहितविविधार्थप्रलपितः पुरः क्लुप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथा शक्तिव्यक्तं नतिनुति निषेवा विरचयन्.
And the third line, the comma is after the varada. So puraklipte pade varada, then comma.
Okay. किमुक्तैर्भूयोभिः तव हि करुणायावदुदयात् अहं तावदेव प्रहितविविधार्थप्रलपितः पुरः क्लुप्ते पादे वरद तव नेष्यामि दिवसान् यथा शक्तिव्यक्तं नतिनुति निषेवा विरचयन्.
Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Complete Dashakam 3. So we'll switch. Harini, you can be student, and Shailaja, you can be student. So Dashakam 4 is Ashtanga Yoga Varnanam and Yoga Siddhi Varnanam cha. So like we saw, the first Dashakam was talking about the greatness of the Lord. Second, describe the form of the Lord. Third is the devotee who needs to, what is the kind, how does one need to be a devotee to reach the Lord. Fourth is showing the path because the word yoga, the root of it is yuj. Yuj means to join. So there are different. So the yoga is, so Ashtanga yoga is the 8 limbs of yoga which you have to follow to reach the Lord, right? Now, I mean, I always say this Dasakam, right, is for people who believe that I don't have to do prayers, but I can attain through the Ashtanga yoga. There is a path which is very clearly given here, which is what we're going to see, right? And I'll always do a call out saying that step 1 itself, even I don't follow. So I'm just saying here, but that doesn't mean I am able to follow, because so hard it is, right? So anyway, we'll go through that. What are the 8 steps? And once you reach the 8 steps, how do you then get your entire soul out and then decide where you want to go, whether you want to merge with the Lord instantly or go through the various lokas and finally reach the Lord, right? So that is this Dasakam, right? For people who are interested in going in that route. So this one.
One question. You said it's Ashtanga Yoga Varnanam and what?
Yoga Siddhi Varnanam, attainment of that yoga, which is attainment of union with the Lord. That's what it is, right? Okay, so the first 3 Dasakams we saw were the 4-liner tunes. Now the tune is going to change because it's going to be a smaller lines, right? So stanza 1. Kalyata mama kurushvatavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtamashtabida yoga charyaya pushtaya sutavatushtimapnuyam. So it just starts with a quick prayer at the beginning before we get to the Ashtanga yoga. A little bit of continuation of, help cure my body so I can pray, a little bit of thing. He says, practicing this Ashtanga yoga is extremely hard, right? And, and if I have to then get to you through practicing the Ashtanga yoga, then health is very important. Body is very important, because you're going to do a lot of things later, which is going to require your body to be functioning, right? So it first starts with a prayer saying, please bless me with the right, mental and health, physical energy to be able to practice Ashtanga yoga, so I can then eventually get to you, or eventually, merge with you. So kalyatam mama kurushva tavatim, kalyate bhavat upasanam yaya spashtam ashta vidha yoga charyaya, pushtayashu tava tushtim apnuyam. If you want to break, you can break at that ma. Tushtim apnuyam. Kalyatam mama kurushva tavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtamashta yoga charyaya pushtayashu tava tushtim apnuyam.
Kalyatam mama kurushvatavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtamashta yoga charyaya pushtaya shutava tushtim apnuyam tushtim apnuyam. Kalyatam mama kurushvatavatim kalyate bhavadupasanam yaya spashtamashti yoga charyaya pushtaya shutava tushtimapnuyam.
Kalyata mama kurushvataavatim kalyate bhavatupasanam yaya spashtamashtadvida yogacharyaya pushtaya shutavat tushtimapnuyam. Kalyata mama kurushvataavatim kalyate bhavatupasanam yaya spashtamashtavida yogacharyaya pushtayashu tava tushtimapnuyam.
Stanza 2. Brahmacharya dridhatadhibhiryamaihi aplavaadiniyamaischa bhavitaha kurmahe dridamami sukhasanam pankajadyamapi va bhavatparaha. So each of this next few stanzas are going to talk about the various of the angams, but before we get into that, so the 8 limbs, the Ashtanga yoga is, they're kind of categorized it into 3 parts. So the first one, which is yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, the first 4 parts of it, they are to prepare yourself for the next phase, which is pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, which we'll see all of those. So the first 4 are to prepare you for the next 3. And once you cross all the 7, then the 8th one, which is the final limb of the yoga, is samadhi, which is the union with the Lord, right? So the way it goes is the first 4 you have to do, and the way it happens is you have to go. You cannot jump it. Not that you cannot jump it. The only way to reach it is to go in a sequence, right? So you cannot just directly say, okay, I'm going to first start with pranayama, or first I'm going to start with asana. It is no, you cannot do that. You'll never be able to get to the completion of it. You have to go in sequence, because only then you'll be able to incrementally build on everything, right? So the first in this stanza, and then stanza 2 here, so he's beginning to talk about the first main one, yama, niyama, asana. 3 things he's talking about, right? So the simplest way to think about yama, which is the step 1 of Ashtanga Yoga, is correct behavior towards others. Is think of how you behave with others, right? That is step number 1. And this recommendation, this long, you can go search, right, and find out, okay, what are the principles I need to follow to, achieve yama, the first limb. It'll say you have to be, you have to always say truth to others. You should not injure anybody, physically and mentally, right? And you should be like, you should not have any debt towards anybody. So you cannot, people giving you gifts automatically means that you have a debt towards that person. So don't take any gifts from anybody. So it kind of talks through all of those things, right? That is step number 1, which is yama, which is how you behave in relation to someone else. The second one, which comes as niyama. So niyama is the principles by which you should live your life. First of all, it says general cleanliness, outward cleanliness, and inward cleanliness. Number 2 is contentment with whatever you have. I'm just giving some examples, right? So just being contented with what you have. And then, you have to do, even yoga says you have to do tapas, you have to do austerities, because that's the only way you can cleanse your mind, right? So essentially the second one, niyama, is how you maintain yourself mentally, physically, right? Not getting worried, not wanting too many things. All of that is the second one, niyama. The third one is asana. Asana is to be able to perform yoga. You should be able to sit in the right way, right? And the sit in the way doesn't mean that you cannot sit, you have to sit too erect or hunched and all of that. And to be able to sit for long periods of time, right? Like, even 1 hour, you want to sit, it gets very hard, right? And then you see some of the great people, when we go sit in this homam, when you do Chandi homam, our main guru, Raghuvanna, he'll be like 5 hours homam. In between, I'll give you a 2-minute break to drink water, right? At the time, you have to stand up. Otherwise, you have to sit through the whole thing, right? So he says you have to get your body getting used to it, right? Because otherwise, you cannot do Ashtanga Yoga. It is so hard. So anyway, so that is the third one, is asana, to be able to sit, not even do the yoga postures, because that's going to come later. So anyway, he says these are the sukhasana. He's giving some examples, right? So the lotus pose, pankajhadyam api sukhasanam pankajhatim. So those are all the various poses of sitting. So to be able to do all of that. So that's the first 3 limbs of the Ashtanga Yoga. So brahmacharya, sorry, somebody is not unmute. Brahmacharya hridatadhibhir yamaihi. So the ra that is there, you put a visarga and comma, yamaihi, comma. Then the next word will start with the a, because you're breaking the ra up. So yamaihi aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha kurmahe dhridamami sukhasanam, comma, pankajadhyamapi va bhavat paraha. Brahmacharya dhridatadibhiryamaihi aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha kurmahe dhridamami sukhasanam pankajadhyamapi va bhavat paraha.
Brahmacharya dridataabhibhiryamahi. Sorry. Brahmacharya
Dridata dibir yamaihi.
Brahmacharya dridataabhiryamaihi aplavadi niyamaischa pavitaha.
कुर्महै दृढममि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि वा भवत्पराः दृढतादिभिर्मैः आप्लवादिनियमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढममि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि वा भवत्पराः
ब्रह्मचर्यधृततादिभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनियमैश्च पाविताः कुर्महे धृतममामि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि वा भवत्पराः
Kurmahe dridha mami.
कुर्महे दृढममि सुखासनं. Okay.
Yeah, correct. Adhe mari on the first line also the dridha ta and the
Dridha.
dha. Yeah, this is second dha.
Okay. Dridhata. Dridhata. Okay. ब्रह्मचर्य दृढतादिभिर्यमैः आप्लवादिनियमश्च पाविताः कुर्महे दृढममामि सुखासनं पङ्कजाद्यमपि वा भवत्पराः.
Again, the dridha, you're saying mamami or something.
Dridha mami. Okay, yeah. Kurmahe dridhamami sukhasanam.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tansatri. Tarhamantaranu santatam pranavayumabhiyamya nirmalaha indriyani vishayatatapahrtyasmahe bhavadupasanonmukhaha. So, get over, let's say, yama, niyama, asana. You got through 3 of them. The 4th one, now it comes as control of the breath, right? So pranayama, it's that's the word for it, pranayama, right? To be able to control the prana, vayu that is there. But doing 5, 10, 20 and all is not going to help, right? Because eventually the first step for anybody who wants to attain sannyasam, when they say, is complete control over the breath, right? To the extent that you need to know how your breath is flowing through your body, right? And first you do 10 times. If you're feeling stressed, you do 10 times. Okay, it'll calm you down. But this is taking it to a completely different level, right? You should be able to know whether the breath in and out, left, right, is it in control? How is it going through the body? You should have a complete control of the breath, because that is important, because only then your focus will improve to that level, right? So that is the 4th one, which is to be able to practice pranayama consistently and get it to a level where you're able to control your breath. Then the next one that comes is something called as a pratyahara, right? Which is now it starts getting difficult, right? So up to this point, we can say, you know what? I can stop lying to people. I can do that. I can learn to sit properly, and I can exercise, make my body fit. Pranayama, yeah, you may be doing 10 today, I can do 100 tomorrow. I can potentially do it. The pratyahara, the problem is to withdraw your senses from sense objects. And what I mean by that, and I always give this example, right? My house, my family, the living room, kitchen, it kind of goes in one floor, and then I have a small puja room, right? I could be sitting in the puja room, my wife will be cooking, I can still smell what she's cooking, right? Because we cannot take our senses out, basic things, right? We cannot keep our senses away from other sensory objects. So this pratyahara is the ability to withdraw your senses away from all the sense objects, which means your nose should not care about the smell. Your mouth should not, worry about the taste of things. And your eyes, when you're praying, I'm saying, right? You're sitting and praying, and then the kids are fighting. You're like, guys, calm down, right? You cannot get impacted by that. You cannot get impacted by other things you're seeing, saying, how certain thing is when you're praying. So that's an extremely hard thing, is to get your senses in control, which is pratyahara. Because without being able to do pratyahara, you cannot go to the next one. Right, so that we will see what that next one is, but he says that's why this is extremely important, is to get a control of your senses. So taram antharanu chintya, if you want to break at that ma, taram antharanu chintya santatam, comma, prana vayum abhiyamya nirmalaha indriyani Vishaya. So this one, the next big word, we cannot break it. We're going to say the whole word together. So you kind of have to say it that way. Vishaya datha pahrityasmahe. Okay, cannot break it. So if you want, you can put dividers and keep, but there's no way to break it. Vishaya datha pahrityasmahe bhavat upasanon mukhaha. Or bhavad upasanon. You can say it together as well. तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषया तथा पहृत्यास्महे भवदुपासनोन्मुखाः.
तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियन्मय निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयादयापहृदयास्महे भवदुपासनोन्मुखाः.
The second line, right? So Vishaya datha, the tha pahrit yasmahe.
Vishayadatha pahrityasmahe.
Yeah, correct.
तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयादथापहृतयास्महे भवदुपासनोन्मुखाः.
Rajesh ji, one question. The first word is Tara Mandaranu or Mantranu?
It's Taram Antar Anuchintya, 3 words. So, Taramantaranu. Okay.
तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयादत्तापहृत्यास्महे भवदुपासनोन्मुखाः.
Just sorry, you said it correctly, but if you break after that yasmahe, then you'll just lose the tune a little bit, right? So it's Indriyani Vishayadata Pahrityasmahe Bhavadupasanonmukaha.
तारमन्तरनुचिन्त्य सन्ततं प्राणवायुमभियम्य निर्मलाः इन्द्रियाणि विषयादतापहृत्यस्महे भवतुपासनोन्मुखाः. I think I still got that wrong.
Okay. There's a tune you can practice, no worry. I mean, and the meaning ninga kettadukku, the staram antar anuchintya, tara mantram, the taraka mantram in your mind, antar. So imagining or saying the taraka mantram in your mind, you do the pranayama. That's what that is trying to say.
So would it sound like Tara Mantra or Taram Antar?
Because it's not mantram, it's not referring to that mantram. It's saying taram antar. Antar. Inside.
Antar. Okay.
Stanza 4. Asputhe vapushite prayatnato dharaye madishana muhur muhuhu tena bhakti rasamantaraddratam udvahe bhavadangri chintakaha. So let's say you somehow overcome the previous one, pratyahara, which is you're able to control your senses, you're not getting distracted with your eyes, with your nose, with your mouth, with your ears, any of those things, right? He says the next one you have to control is your mind, right? Which is the hardest to control. You could be sitting in your puja room, no kids in your house, nobody is cooking, no noise coming, your eyes are shut, right? Your mind can still wander anywhere it wants to go, right? Extremely difficult to control. And he says, before you come to the state of dhyana, which is the next one, to be able to come to the state of dharana, which is what we are going to talk about right now, he says your mind has to be in control. And he says the only way to get your mind in control and get this dharana going is to fix your mind on one object and just focus on that object, right? Now, you can fix your mind on any object you want, right? Some people might say, light a lamp, focus your mind on the lamp, on the light. Very hard. Probably you can do it for 15 minutes. You cannot, your mind will wander, right? So he says the best way to do it is to imagine the form of the Lord that was described in Dasakam 2, which is going to also be described in Dasakam 100. And he says you focus your mind on the form of the Lord initially. It doesn't matter which place of the Lord you're Krishna or Guru Arpan you're focusing on. You can focus it on the full body, you can focus it on the head, you can focus it on the leg, or ideally, if you want, you start from the head and go all the way down. So Keshadi Pada Varnana. Go start on the head and focus your mind on that. He says that is okay, because your mind and your senses will not start wandering in other places. So first, starting off, he says, you imagine that form, and he says initially it is going to be very blurry, right? That's okay. You keep the photo in front of you, open your eyes briefly, get it, but constantly keep doing it every time, right? Till you get that form so embedded in your mind that you can sit, you can close, and then you can at least imagine that form, right? First, he starts off with full form, and Krishna later on tells Uddhava how to do it also, which is a little bit complicated. He'll say, you imagine my form with a Chaturbhujam sitting at the tip of your nose to the size of your nostril. That form you imagine, and you focus on the Nasa Agre, at the tip of your nose. That's where your focus has to be. In that tip of your nose, when you're focusing, you imagine my Chaturbhujam form, right? And then you imagine my form there with all the details that you can think of. So first you start imagining whatever you want, right? So anyway, so he says, Dharana here is focusing your mind and your senses on some object, right? So asfute vapushi te prayatnato, with lot of effort, comma, dharayema dishanam muhur muhuhu, tena bhakti, again the same like we said, antar, rasam, antar, you can break that word if you want, rasam, antar, ardratham. So the mu that you have there, you break that mu, put a im first, ardratham, comma, next word will start with the u, udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha. So chintaka is to think, to focus on your feet or your body, Bhagavan's body. Asputhe vapushinte prayatnato dharahe madishanam muhur muhuhu tena bhakti rasamantaradhratam udvahema bhavadangri chintakaha.
अस्फुटे वपुषिते प्रयत्नतो धारयेम दिशणां मुहुर्मुहुः तेन भक्तिरसमन्तरार्द्रताम् उद्वहेम भवदिङ्ग्रचिन्तकाः. भवदङ्घ्रि चिन्तकाः. अस्फुटे वपुषिते प्रयत्नतो धारयेम दिशणां मुहुर्मुहुः तेन भक्तिरसमन्तरार्द्रताम् उद्वहेम भवदङ्घ्रिचिन्तकाः.
अस्फुटे वपुषिते प्रयत्नतो धारयेम दिशनां मुहुर्मुहुः तेन भक्तिरसमन्तरार्द्रताम् उद्वहेम भवदङ्घ्रिचिन्तकाः. अस्फुटे वपुषिते प्रयत्नतो धारयेम दिशनां मुहुर्मुहुः तेन भक्तिरसमन्तरार्द्रताम् उद्वहेम भवदङ्घ्रिचिन्तकाः.
That's a fine. Bisputha vayavabheda sundharam twadvapus suchirashīlanāvashat ashramam manasi chintayamahe dhyana yoga niratāstvadhāshrayāh. She says, for me to be able to go to the dhyana state, which is the next state that we're going to go in the next stanza, he says first this dharana which we started off by sitting and meditating on the form of the Lord with our senses in control, with our mind in control, has to be completely, you should make it perfect to the extent, he says, is anytime you want, ashramam, without any effort. You should be able to go, you are in a busy airport, you should be able to sit in the middle of in your chair, close your eyes, not worry about any other distractions, and the form of the Lord has to come in your mind and you're able to focus. He says you should get to that point, because without that, he says you cannot go to dhyana state, because that is even more complicated state. So this dharana has to be overcome, which is the state of controlling your senses, controlling your mind, and imagining the form of the Lord. And he says at some point you keep doing it. Nothing comes in the first attempt. You keep doing it. He says eventually you will be able to see a very clear form of the Lord, right? He says there's nothing much required beyond that, right? And when we see Dhruva Charitram further later, right, in the 17th Dasakam, Dhruva is a 5-year-old boy, right? And I don't want to tell the story here, but he's a 5-year-old boy. Narada will instruct him how to think of the form of the Lord. That's all, right? And then Dhruva will get into the state where he's not worried about anything else happening in this world, where he is, and just thinking about the form of the Lord. And in 6 months, the Lord will come in full form in front of Dhruva, right? So he says that is the state you have to attain of being able to ashramam without putting any effort. You should reach. Then you are ready for the next one, right? So visputha vayava Bheda Sundaram, comma, Tvad Vapuhu, is there put a is, Tvad Vapus, Suchira, Sheelanavashat, Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe, comma, Dhyana Yoga Nirathas Twadashrayaha. Visputa Vayava Bheda Sundaram, Twadvapus Suchira Sheelanavashat, Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe, Dhyana Yoga Niratastwadashrayaha.
Visfutavayava Beda Sundaram Twadvapushuchirashilanavashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Niratah Swadashrayaha Visfutavayava Beda Sundaram Twadpuhusuchir. Sorry?
Twadvapus.
Twadvapuschuchir. Okay. Visfutavayava Beda Sundaram Twadvapusuchirashilanavashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Nirataswadiyashrayaha.
Niratas Twadashrayaha.
Niratastwadashrayaha.
Vishputavayava Sundaram Twadvapuschirashilanavashat.
Sorry, Shailaja, you're missing that su there. Twadvapus Suchira.
Oh, yeah. Twadvapushuchirashilanavashat Vishputavayava Sundaram Twadvapushuchirashilanavashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Niratastwadashraya.
Ashrayaha, that's a visarga.
Yeah. Vishputavayava Sundaram Twadvapushuchirashilanavashat Ashramam Manasi Chintayamahe Dhyana Yoga Niratastwadashrayaha.
We'll do one more and stop today. Dhyayatam sakala murtimi drushim unmishan madurata hritatmanam sandramodara rupamantaram brahma rupamaite vabhasate. Next you come to the more complicated one, which is dhyana. So the simplest difference between dharana and dhyana, to think of it as, so imagine you are a wildlife photographer and you are taking your camera, you are seeing this deer run. So with your camera, you are moving the camera following the deer. That is dharana. You are still focused on the deer. You are not losing sight of the deer, but your mind is still consciously doing something, right? You're consciously thinking of the form of the Lord. That is the dharana state which you come. The dhyana status is no conscious effort. Imagine the camera is locked onto the deer. So you are not doing any conscious effort. It's automatically capturing. So that's a state of dhyana where you kind of have to elevate to a couple of levels of dhyana. The first level of dhyana is not putting any effort. The only thing that comes to your mind when you close your eyes is the form of Bhagavan. First. Second, it takes about, you have to take this form to the nirguna form, which is the form of the Brahman, which is no form. Okay, which means your mind has to meditate on nothingness, knowing that the nothingness is the supreme Brahman who doesn't have a form, right? So that state you have to reach, which is dhyana state, right? And because only then you reach the last state, samadhi, because eventually, the yogis who get into samadhi are thinking about the nirguna Brahman, which doesn't have any form. Right? So he says that's why this dhyana is extremely important. Dhyana is not just sitting and thinking about the Lord, because then you are in dharana state, right? But dhyana state is you're not consciously putting any effort and you're thinking about the nirguna Brahman. That is and this continues a little bit to the next stanza, so I'll wait for next class. So dhyayatam sakala murtim idrishim, so that mu that is there, if you first make it a im, murtim idrishim, im, comma. Next word will start with the u. Unmishan madhurata hritatmanam sandra moda rasa rupamantaram, comma, brahma rupamayi teva bhasate. Dhyayatam sakala murtim drishim unmishan madhurata hritatmanam sandra moda rasa rupamantaram Brahma Rupamayi Teva Bhasate.
Dhyayatam sakala murtimidrishim unmishan madhurata hritatmanam sandramodarasa rupamantaram Brahma Rupamaiteva Bhasate. Dhyayatam sakala murtimirdrishim unmishan madhurakhritatmanam.
Madhurata.
Sorry?
And the word unmishan madhurata khritatmanam.
Unmitam madhurakhritatmanam.
Ha, you're missing. Madhurata.
Madhuratakhritatmanam. Madhuratakhritatmanam.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start from first, sorry. Dhyayatam sakala murtimirdrishim unmishan madhuratakhritatmanam sandramodarasa rupamantaram Brahma Rupamayiteva Bhasate.
Dhyayatam sakalamurtimidrishim unmishan madhuratakhritatmanam sandramodarasarupamantaram Brahma Rupamayiteva Bhasate. Dhyayatam sakalamurtimidrishim unmishan madhuratakhritatmanam sandramodarasarupamantaram Brahma Rupamayiteva Bhasate.
Shri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha. In the class here today, do the Sandrananda ones. Sandrananda Babodhatmakamanupamitam Kaladeshavadebhyam Nirmuktam Nityamuktam Nigama Shatasahasrena Nirbhasyamanam Spashtam Drishtamate Arurupushartatmakam Brahma Tattvam Tattavad Bhati Sakshat Guru Pavanapure Hanta Bhagyam Jananam कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. Namaskaram.
Thank you very much.